you ever thought to yourself, I have no idea what I'm doing with my life? If you have, you are in the right place. This is one episode of 8 parts in Season 3 of Ride the Tide Collective, the podcast, that will help you figure out what you are doing in your life and career. Regardless of your career status at this point, this short season will give you direction and thoughts to ponder that will help you find clarity moving forward. I am excited to help you take control of your career. Hey, part 3 of I Don't Know What I'm Doing with My Life is all about personality. In the guidebook, I cover personality the most because understanding who you are is about 75% of the information you need to be successful, however you define success. Once you understand yourself, you can start to understand others, which creates a level of clarity and confidence that will help you figure out what you are doing with your life. But how do you start to articulate your personality, especially if you're new to all this? Assessments. I know some of you have taken assessments as part of work and absolutely hate them. That is valid. Quite a few organizations or managers distribute assessments and don't do the appropriate follow-up to make sense of the results, or worse, use it against you. As someone who is certified in a few different assessments, I can tell you they aren't meant to be used that way. Some even say that forcing a group to take an assessment and share the results borders on an unethical invasion of privacy. Regardless of your views on assessments, I'd like to ask you to reframe your thinking. The assessments I recommend to my clients are MBTI, or the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Step 1 and 2, Gallup Strengths, and Enneagram. Why all 3? Well, we aren't all created equal, and sometimes the way one assessment articulates something is easier for us to understand than another. We can also use the 3 assessments to find alignments in your personality. I'm not going to run through all the details of these assessments because you can find it in the guidebook, along with content to help you unofficially determine your assessment results. Remember, this is self-identification, which is part of the assessment process in combination with your official results. I include links in the guidebook to where you can take the official assessments, and if you become a client of mine in the new coaching program, I include these assessments as part of your investment. For the purposes of today, I want to talk through the Big 5, which are the personality traits that most psychologists use to assess a person's personality. There is no right or wrong when it comes to assessments, and the Big 5 is no exception. Let's break it down. First, we have openness, which is the degree of intellectual curiosity, creativity, and preference for novelty. The Big 5 uses a spectrum, and on one end, we have inventive and curious, and on the other end, we have consistent and cautious. What I like about the Big 5 is that it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. I'm about in the center for openness with a slight preference for inventive and curious. My husband, though, is more consistent and cautious. From a relationship perspective, it helps to know these characteristics about each other because it will change how we communicate with one another. Next up, we have conscientiousness. This is the tendency to be organized and dependable. On one end, we have efficient and organized, and on the other end, we have easygoing and careless. At first glance, you might see the person on the efficient and organized end of the spectrum as better. But remember, there's no right or wrong or better or worse. When we are building teams, you want to have members on both sides of the spectrum because they bring different strengths. Your organized and efficient members will likely be your project managers, and your easygoing members are the ones you want when or if things change quickly. Third, we have extroversion, which I believe is the most misunderstood personality trait. It is defined here as the tendency to seek the company of others and talk. On one side, we have solitary and reserved, and on the other, outgoing and energetic. There is a common misconception that those who are more solitary don't talk or want to be around people. The reality is, we do, but selectively. The Big 5 oversimplifies extroversion for me, and even the definition lends itself to preference those who want to be around people excessively. Another argument might be that it's human nature to be around others, which is true, but again, some are more selective than others. Next up, we have agreeableness, which is the measure of one's trusting and helpful nature. On one end of the spectrum is challenging and detached, and on the other end is friendly and compassionate. And the fifth trait is neuroticism, which is the predisposition to psychological stress. On one end, we have secure and confident, and on the other end, we have sensitive and nervous. I'm sure some of you are thinking, you said there's no right or wrong, but some of the ends of the spectrum sound healthy and some don't. Completely valid. My approach to these traits is that we all fall somewhere on the spectrum and likely strive to be somewhere in the middle. When you are too far to one end is when it gets unhealthy. Imagine someone who is detached from others and always challenging you. That's not healthy. Similarly, someone who trusts too much becomes taken advantage of easily. I would encourage you to challenge your own preconceived notions of the words used on the spectrum and for the traits. We all have our own definitions, and it helps to separate what we think we know and look at the reality of what these traits are telling us. While the Big Five is not something I use regularly in career strategy, I think it's helpful to know as it is used by counselors and therapists. You will also see some alignment with the personality assessments I recommended. At the end of the day, anything you can do to help you articulate yourself and become confident in who you are as a human is a win. If you have any questions, please connect with me on social media at Ride the Tide Collective. I can be found on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I'll be doing a Q&A episode at the end of the season where I'll be answering your questions. For those of you who are ready to work, I recommend downloading the guidebook complement to this season called I Don't Know What I'm Doing with My Life, A Guide to Career Clarity. I'll link it in the show notes.